What is the true history of EverQuest? Ask some people and they'll say it's 20 years of removing all the fun in the game. Nerfs were emergency fixes for this exploits. Some serious, some not. We have 13 nerfs and 6 special guests from start to finish. Let's go.
So I've got my flowing black silk sash, I've got my fungi tunic, and I've even got my scepter of destruction. So I'm ready to go kick some decaying skeleton ass. The only thing I still need is some buffs. Wait, is that Ion Blaze? Oh shit, it's another collaboration. And we're gonna be talking about being a noob? This is like 100% up my alley. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Redbeard Flynn and I run a gaming channel here on YouTube. My channel focuses primarily on MMOs with of course a very heavy-handed look at my favorite MMO of all time, EverQuest. It was my second MMO, but my first love. Now that cheesy shit is out of the way, let's actually talk about why we're here. There are 2 main ways to be overpowered at level 1 in EverQuest. One of them was nerfed very early. The other one lasted a while and there's still some holdouts, but really it's created some legendary items the way it was nerfed. Now early on, there were no limits on buffs. Now when I say early, as far as my research and my admittedly kind of shitty memory have gone, I'm thinking that this change happened right around Konark or at the very latest Velius. When you start with just a few hit points at level 1, I don't think I have to go into much detail to explain how insanely helpful it would be to add a couple hundred to that base. And just imagine, what if they had not added level? What if you had thousands of extra HP at that level? Or damage shields that went higher than 24? Or regeneration that went higher than 15? Speaking of regen, after Velius, EverQuest began kind of experimenting with adding item level requirements, really going full in with Planes of Power. This meant that you could no longer take items from your high level groups and high level raids and throw them onto your level 1 alt. And for a time, the items that existed before the change were okay. And then the nerfs started happening. Or when they changed mechanics, like making haste less effective, so you could no longer really get the full benefit of something like a flowing black silk sash until you reach the appropriate level to get the maximum benefit from it. So that left a lot of the items that were very good for power leveling no longer useful. There's a few that remain incredible, like the Scepter of Destruction, but that item in itself is an item that only existed for as long as your server had the sleeper not awakened. And as we've seen on even progression servers, that doesn't last very long. That's my time. This was so much fun. Thank you so much to Ion Blaze for including me in this collaboration. And thank you so much to all the other creators who took part as well. I look forward to seeing your parts of the video. Now, if you don't mind me, I'm just gonna put on my pre-nerf Circlet of Shadows.
Are taunting spells the best way to hold aggro? No, not at all. It used to be that you could spam an instant click item to build even more aggro, J-Boots being the favorite one. No matter how hard DPS were going, a tank spamming J-Boots couldn't be beat. And it was nerfed specifically because of Vox and Nagafin. Normally Vox and Nagi have nasty AoEs that shred through raids. But for some reason, if a tank could keep aggro behind a wall with, say, J-Boots, Vox and Nagi don't AoE at all. These raids went from 30-second death waves to a simple tank and spank. But now this no longer works, obviously. It broke the intended difficulty of these fights. Damn creative exploit though. Reminds me of mezzing Finny or Drusilla and mana tapping them dry, turning vicious casters into simple tank and spanks. That got nerfed too. Charming mobs has been nerfed many times, and for many classes, let's talk about a few of them. Very early in the game, charm was a fixed duration. You could set a timer and know exactly when charm would break, so it let charmers solo with very little risk. It wasn't uncommon to find Necros and Enchanters farming all the big name camps in Lower Guck, and they racked in big money from selling rare drops. But now, Charm will randomly break early. It's just not as safe anymore. Using a Charm pet can also hurt your experience gain, and among other things, Charm pets have been weakened over time. On TLP servers, sometimes there would be special mobs left in zones that were out of era. Shouldn't be there yet, but they were. For example, Irod Herod in Mistmore Castle. A level 30 Dark Elf from the much later Legacy of Yakesha expansion, but was present in Classic from the very start. Enchanters were able to charm these out-of-era mobs to great effect. They were major undercons. Irod at level 30 could wreck level 60s. Summons, drains mana, hits like a beast, and has crazy hit points. Enchanters could destroy zones with these overpowered charm pets, but no longer. And I'm not familiar with this, but on PvP servers, you could fear and charm other players. So you could charm someone, send them to attack guards, and take an EXP death. Or send them at a train of mobs, whatever your whimsy of the day was. On PvP servers, you could also loot one item that was no drop from their corpse, so most people ran around naked. There's a joke on PvP that there's no need to recover your corpse. It's already been looted.
I'm 12 streams. My YouTube channel focuses on live servers, 115 plus level generally, and most of my videos are on how to approach playing different classes given all the AAs we've got. So let's talk about how to break the server. There were many abilities and items that you could use to mass annihilate zones. Anything that lets you do that, of course, got nerfed. Let's talk about it. The first one is Earthshaker. That was often done in the plane of fire. Here I am in the plane of earth. This is where I would do it. This weapon existed for years with no issue, but players found a way to break it so bad that servers were crashing. It was called Shaker Paging. This innocuous two-handed sword seems horrible. It procs an AoE nuke for around 200 damage. Not that useful, right? Wrong. When combined with class abilities and slow, it was a very fast experience. You'd pull everything in a zone on your warrior, and then you'd go to a corner and back yourself up. When the mobs came to you, you would hit Furious, and it would riposte all of the attacks over a 12-second period. Every time that AoE procced, it would do damage to every mob in the pile. This created huge lag, if not outright crashed the server, and it was stopped eventually. But it was a lot of fun. Bards used to pull everything into the zone. They'd kill it with their AoE dots. Chronobi, Dreadlands, Burning Woods, the Over There, all of these zones could be dominated by bards in quick work. It would be a little annoying if you weren't a bard because they would be pulling like 50 mobs behind them, and you'd see them slowly going down in health as those area effect dots took those mobs down. There'd be lag, zone disruption. They changed it so now AoE dots only work when you're standing still, so that you can no longer just kite mobs safely without any real danger once you get the skills down. On P99, AoE dots and nukes still work when you're kiting, but it's only 25 targets max. I'm standing next to my friend Slicks and Plex, and I thought for sure that would be nerfed because as an enchanter, this was the mob to charm in the zone. He's a quest mob, he's got superpower, but it turns out you can still charm this little guy. Let's move on. Shadow Knights were pretty much immortal with their 2.0 epic. It was crazy powerful. 100% life tap for all of the damage you did. You can pull an entire zone, take it down after popping a repose discipline. So long as you had enough healing from posting a swarm, you can even take down raid targets. That's no longer possible. They nerfed it. I used to like to do gribble runs. You know, it was always so impressive. You would just go through and pull the entire zone, pop your 2.0, pop your post, and the mobs would just melt. So here I'm standing outside the entrance to the Plane of Shadow. This was a zone that mages could own, what they call beaming. A mage's beam spell could affect an unlimited number of targets. And as I recall, basically beaming was an ability where you'd have someone kite an entire zone of mobs around into this huge herd, and then at a certain point the mage would start hitting that pack of mobs with their beam spells. And slowly you would melt the mobs and you could kill an entire zone worth of mobs. It was incredible. A guy named Kritz did it all the time. Good raiding mage, good friend of mine. He's moved on to the TLP servers. But that was definitely nerfed. There's a theme to all of these. If you can attack all of the mobs at once with an area of effects spell, then somebody's going to figure out a way to abuse that. Now we're going to talk about pets. Kind of a cute little pet bullying technique that we used to do that was nerfed. It wasn't server breaking. It was you could use a green mob and you would buff it up and then send it to attack like a named in a group of other mobs, and then immediately pull that mob back, and it would pull the name out singly. The other mobs wouldn't aggro because this was a green mob. Unfortunately, that was also nerfed. Boy, we loved that technique. I know I did as a Negro. It was great. That's it. Talk to you guys later.
So you have Charm, and now what about Summon Pets? They've also been nerfed many times. Two big instances that are talked about. Mitigation of the Mighty, MOTM. It's a buff added to raid bosses on TLP servers from Classic to Plains of Power, and it makes it so that raid bosses have way more hit points, they take half as much damage from you, and they double their damage. So one of the side effects though is that pets who attack these raid mobs do less damage than before, but even worse than all that is all the aggro your pets make gets transferred to you. If your pet goes too wild, the boss will come after you, so all pet classes got hit pretty hard by this. Damage delay. So pets have a base attack speed, but if you gave them faster weapons like daggers, they would swing faster, but with no drop in damage at all. A pet with dual daggers could quickly shred through mobs, but this was nerfed so that pets' attack speed wouldn't be affected by their weapons anymore.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Wes. My channel is Variety Void. I cover a variety of video games, but EverQuest is one of my favorite games of all time. I like to upload videos that are basically nostalgic. A couple of expansions really nerfed and ruined one of my favorite classes, but I guess technically two classes is what it ruined: Druids and Wizards. If you played one of those two classes back in the day, you can probably already assume which expansions I'm talking about. Luclin and Plains of Power, or Luklin, some of you might say. I say Luclin. Luclin was one of the first expansions that really started to kind of kill the point for the two classes, because most of the money I made was based off of passive income from teleporting and providing buffs. My main character I played for the longest time was a druid, all the way up until Plains of Power. Luclin was kind of the start to the downfall, but Plains of Power is where it really put the nail in the coffin. I remember whenever it dropped, I was so excited for Plains of Power. It's still one of my favorite expansions of all time, but just the sheer ease of access to get people where they wanted to go as fast as possible, Druids became pointless. Wizards already too. But all the passive income I would make from selling teleports to people, 10 platinum to 50 platinum per teleport, I lost it. There was no point for over 80% of what my class was good for. It was hands down one of the biggest nerfs I can think of in the game. It made me switch from a druid main to a rogue main. It sucked when we lost that extra income. Anyways, guys, that is it for me. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Back in the day, lots of people would make level 1 tunes to beg for gear. And if you gave them this tunic, they'd instantly die. It takes away more health than they have. Can't confirm, but this still could have worked when developers made the change that characters would respawn with gear after dying. So you could essentially perma-kill players by giving them this tunic. They would die, respawn, die instantly, respawn, and so on. Their only hope was to be quick enough to unequip before death, which few were. Lots of players kept this item in their bank to give to newbies, and they later updated the game to not let players equip items that would insta-kill them, of course.
What's up, everyone out there in YouTube land? I'm Perry Lovewhistle. My channel is currently about 90% made up of a Let's Play on Project 1999 Green, where I play Zaner, the Ranger. So if we're going to be talking about the things EverQuest has nerfed, we have to talk about the headshot alternate advancement. Now, Zaner will never see this. Project 1999 stops at the end of the Valios era, but during the next two expansions, EverQuest finally makes Rangers viable with ranged weapons, instead of just being bad rogues, which is what we will be throughout Project 1999. This starts with some better equipment in the Luclin expansion, but ultimately culminates in the headshot alternate advancement during Plains of Power. Headshot is available at level 60, and it adds a proc to archery that, according to Alakazam, could do up to 32,000 damage to humanoids of sufficiently lower level than the user. This was designed to be a one-hit kill to anything it was able to hit. To give an idea, the Froglock Commander, which is a very high-level target in Old Sibyllus, has 13.7 thousand hit points. Unfortunately, this wouldn't last long. I guess the devs at EQ were uncomfortable with Rangers actually being able to live their Legolas truth, and in later expansions, Headshot was gradually chipped away with nerfs, first lowering the proc rate, then increasing the cooldown time, making Headshot pretty useless, ultimately resulting in Headshot being another headstone in the graveyard of nerfed items and abilities that make some people prefer to play classic EverQuest than EverQuest in its current form. Bye.
The biggest nerf ever to dwarves. I'm just going to quote this directly. Once they updated the models in Lucklin, it killed the dwarf roll. Dwarves have been hit the hardest. A flip is not a roll. So to summarize, the dwarf flip is what caused the decline of EverQuest. Not the power planes, not the moon kitties, but the updated models did it. Even Mr. Blaze chooses to play on old models. So talking about moon kitties, let me tell you how this cat's a jerk. My girlfriend and I almost broke up over her. I'm allergic to cats, so I did not want her. Girlfriend gets the kitty anyways, and I just go, screw it, I'll tough it out. And it's fine, my allergies are better now. But something unexpected happened. The cat starts to love me more. He didn't even want you! You're my ESA animal! And that's what my girlfriend says when she gets jealous. But let's get back on with the video. What are y'all doing?
Hey guys, AC Gamer here, and a big shout out goes to Ion Blaze for letting me bring you the 10th spot, Unlimited Mana. These were several ways people could quickly recover their entire mana pool, and it made meditation pretty much irrelevant. Developers couldn't let that happen, so these items were either nerfed or eliminated completely. Coming in on the number 1 spot, the Mana Stone. A legendary item that used to drop from Lord Guck off of the Evil Eye. It would allow you to convert 60 hit points to 20 mana. Slightly less efficient than the old Cannibalize spell for shamans. Only usable in old world zones, it didn't stop people from finding ways around it as future expansions came out. People would simply bind themselves where they're hunting, port back to an old world zone, burn health, and then gate back to continue the fight. It was later removed from the game, but stayed relevant for several expansions afterwards. Number 2, Magicians. They used to be able to summon Mod Rods, another item that let you convert hit points to mana. You could trade them, carry as many as you needed, and it had no cooldown, a very quick way to recover all of your mana. Magicians became pocket mana factories for healers on raids. They got hit hard, no drop, no trade, can only have one at a time, and there was a several minute cooldown between uses. No more infinite mana.
Some classes focus on doing damage over time, called dots. Necros, druids, shamans, this is what they do. Figuratively, you'd get the best efficiency if you just use all your, say, 3 disease dots. Level 10, 32, 48 disease dots, for instance. Just use only those. Good damage and very sustainable with your mana, but that's no longer possible. Will not stack now. So now you're forced to burn more mana by using different tot types. 1 poison, 1 disease, 1 magic. Only 1 from each type will stick and hold. You'll do more damage now, but you'll also burn out of mana quicker, because some of these dot lines are way less efficient. Some parts of the EQ community feel that mercenaries nerf the best part of EverQuest, the fun of playing with others. Mercenaries are kinda bad. I mean, they did reduce the need for other players because you have a pocket helper, but there's a counter argument. It was a necessary evil. The game lost a lot of population over time, and many classes couldn't do anything alone, so adding a helper was mandatory, sort of a double-edged sword, if you will.
Hello, Hammock J here. I'd like to talk about the 13th major nerf, Monk Mitigation. An infamous late Lucklin era warrior, Führer, threw a huge public hissy fit because monks were tanking raid bosses. Führer was upset that he rolled the best tank class, and yet he wasn't the best tank. There were huge stat boost items at the end of Velios and Lucklin that made monks powerful tanks. What happened? In October 2002, all tanks were buffed and the monk's armor class was significantly lowered. According to an ancient EverQuest forum post by GM Kavak, the problem was that the average plate-equipped warriors and knights had barely any lead on monks in mitigation, due to the monk's bonus, but the monks still had the lead in evasion. Contrary to popular belief, this is what prompted the nerf to monk mitigation, not high-end monks being rampage tanks. In April 2003, some of these changes were reverted and the monk mitigation was restored partially.
I want to thank Hammock J, Redbeard Flynn, AC Gamer, 12 Strings, Perry Love-Whistle, and Variety Void for coming by. Please support them. They're keeping this game alive, and their channels will be linked below. And as well, thank you to everyone in the forum posts and comments. Your information made this video happen. Thank you. Let's roll the credits.